Mr. B here, and welcome to the Loft. Cornbread dressing. It's Thanksgiving time, and if you're in the South, your cornbread dressing is a pinnacle on your table. All right, it comes after the bird, after the ham, then comes the dressing. All right, so what is dressing? Well, it's basically a bread casserole that you make using cornbread. You add some chicken stock to it, and you season it up with some onion, celery, and all kinds of some herby deliciousness. As far as recipes go, it's let me rephrase. As far as ingredients goes, it's pretty simple, you know. But as far as technique is concerned, it can take you some practice to get the balance right, because there's one of two things that is going to happen. If you do not, that is, hit that sweet spot in the middle, you're either going to have very dry dressing that no amount of damn gravy is going to cure, all right, or fix for you, or it's going to be too wet and it's basically a cornbread soup, and you don't want that either. So for this reason, and just whatever your particular family tradition is, it's usually the same person year after year after year that makes the dressing. While I can give you a baseline sort of recipe for this, my advice would be that you would use this more as an ingredient list. Now, you can expand this. People put bell pepper, and people put sausage, and people put oysters, people put all kinds of stuff in their dressing. The majority of people are going to have this beef flat kind of cornbread dressing like I'm going to show you. This is one of those that you're going to have to channel your inner granny or your inner meemaw, or, you know, if you're fortunate enough that they're still living, ask, how do you do it? Watch how they do it, okay? I've taught my niece how to do this, and her mama makes a damn good pan of dressing as well, you know? So my niece is going to be able to take mine, take her mama's, and make it her own, okay? So making dressing for me is usually a 3-day process. On the first day, I'm going to make my cornbread, and I typically will use biscuits. You can also toast off some white bread or just sit it out and let it stale. Once the cornbread is done, I'm going to just leave it out on the counter, cover it with a towel, and just let it sit, okay? Day 2, which is where we're starting this video, is where I mix it all up. You're going to mix up your batter for your dressing, if you will, and then you're going to refrigerate that overnight. The longer it kind of sits, the better off it goes. I don't know that I would really want to let it hang out in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 days. I don't think that's necessary. It may start to break down, but an overnight is the best thing that I can find. Then, on Thanksgiving Day, while you're having your morning coffee, you march your butt in your house coat down to the garage refrigerator where you have it stored, and you pull it out. You're going to want your dressing to get up to the ambient temperature of the room, okay? And it's not going to sit out there for hours and hours, but it's going to take the chill off. And that's really all you need, in all honesty, because if you put it in the oven, stone cold out of the refrigerator, it's going to take forever to get it done. Right? And then everybody's going to be hangry and waiting because the dressing is not ready. Now, as far as cooking this thing, I will typically go at about a 400 to 425 degrees, usually running a convection. If you don't have convection, don't worry about it. But 4 to 425 is going to be your sweet spot. This is going to go in the oven after your birds come out. When you start to heat up your casseroles, you may want to let your dressing get about an hour, 45 minutes or so before you start putting in the other casseroles, because the door's open, the door closed, door open, door closed. It's hard to maintain the oven heat. I'm getting carried away. The first hour or so when you're cooking your dressing, you're going to want to do it covered, okay? Let it steam. You don't want it to dry out. It's all going to be kind of wonderful, all right? Then you're going to pull it off after about 45 minutes to an hour. Pull that cover off. Check and see how it's looking. Is it still cold in the middle? If so, cover it back up. Go another 30 more minutes, okay? While you're doing this, you're carving the bird. You're having a glass of wine. You're doing your thing, okay? Then, once it's, you know, to temperature, you're going to take the cover off. You're going to pour an entire stick of melted butter on top of it. Yes, you heard me right. Add some fresh herbs to the top. Throw it back in and let that go until it's bubbling and brown, okay? Pull it out, let it rest for 10-15 minutes or so, and then you're good to go with some of the best dressing you've ever had. So let me show you how to put this together. I'm doing this for a work potluck. Pray for me that it turns out. But I also take this opportunity to, it's sort of my trial run before the big day with family and all. Anyway, let's get busy on some cornbread dressing. Let me just go with a real quick kind of high-level ingredient breakdown. So I have some onions and celery here, which we're going to do something with here in a minute. And I've chopped this pretty fine because you're going to want this aromatic to be a backdrop, not a main player. Poultry seasoning. You've got some rubbed sage, which I am kind of complementing here with some fresh and some fresh thyme, maybe a little bit of parsley, simply because I have it on hand. Generally speaking, this can be a dried spice situation. I will probably also add some dried thyme to the batter as well. Salt and pepper, chicken stock, and I've got some cornbread and some buttermilk biscuits. Now, for your biscuits, what I suggest you do is you find something like that. This Mary B's or Molly B's. They're in your freezer section. If you live outside of the South, you may not be able to find them. So what you do instead, although I personally try to avoid this, and I do not make biscuits, but you know, look, if you've got to use one of the blue cans of Pillsbury, then go for it. You can also use just half a loaf of white bread in this if you want to. What I would do is let it sit at room temperature, go stale, or just toast it off. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with all of this as we go. Not seen on camera, okay? It's going to be a couple of eggs we're going to need to kind of bind it all together. I am using my Mimo's cast iron skillet, one of my prized possessions for this. And I've heated up about 3/4 of a stick. You want about 3/4 of a stick to a whole stick of butter. This is grass-fed Irish butter, so it's got a little moisture in it, so it's probably going to pop on us just a little bit. In goes our celery and our onions. And we are going to give this a pinch of salt, maybe 2, and a pinch of black pepper. And that's for now. Okay. Let's get everything coated in the butter. We're just going to saute this down to where it's all nice and translucent. As you can see, the onions and celery, we've been going about 3 to 5 minutes, I guess, or so. Nice and soft, buttery, really where I'm wanting them to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add this fresh sage and thyme in there, along with a dash of the poultry seasoning. Again, this is about, don't worry, it will be okay. This is about layering flavors, right? And then we're going to put in a little bit of our rubbed sage, okay? A little bit of our dried thyme in here. And we'll throw a little bit of parsley in just because I had it on hand. I'm going to let this go for about a minute so that all of those seasonings and spices really kind of bloom. It smells like Thanksgiving right there. I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to transfer this to a bowl because I need for this to cool down, and it's going to take a long time to do that in this cast iron skillet. We're now ready to start putting all of this together. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of these larger pieces of cornbread and biscuit, and we're just going to crumble them up, okay? We want to get it about as fine as we possibly can. You're going to make a mess. The best way to do this is by hand, okay? Excellent. Now, we're going to hit this first with a little bit of salt. This is a huge batch, so a good tablespoon of salt to start with is not going to hurt anything, okay? And the same goes for the pepper. And then the same goes for the thyme and the poultry seasoning. And let's hit a little bit of rubbed sage in here. Maybe not as much sage as the other things. Folks tend to be a little sensitive to sage. I can't get enough. We're going to put in our vegetables and all of the butter deliciousness that's sticking around in our bowl. Okay. And then we're going to work to kind of incorporate that. This will help continue to sort of cool off the veg there. Perfect. I'm going to start with about 1 whole box of the chicken broth here. Okay, there we have it. Now, pro tip here, I got some extra biscuits on standby just in case we get a little too wet. And then we're going to start mixing this in. Okay, at this point, I'm going to taste for seasoning. Very nice. And we're going to go in with about 3 beaten eggs or so. This will serve as a binder to bring everything together. You're going for the texture of a wet sand. Kind of gloopy. I think this is going to be fine. And I'm going to pour this into a greased roasting pan. Get all of it like it owes you money. And we will just spread this out and around. Cover it with aluminum foil. We're going to refrigerate this overnight. Good morning. So I pulled this out about an hour to let it come up to ambient. Looking good. I'm just going to kind of check it. Hands are clean. Hands are clean. And I think that's, you know, what I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of dot it with a little bit of fresh sage. There's something about sage and fall to me that, I don't know, kind of goes hands in hands like peas and carrots, you know? Is we are going to just put this doesn't have to be pretty because we're just kind of starting the whole thing. We're going to put some sprigs of rosemary in here. And then we're going to cover this tight. And we're going into a 425 degree oven covered for at least 1 hour. Okay, everybody, we're about an hour in to our first kind of warm up on this thing. And I'm going to take it out and kind of see where we're at, all right? Remember, when you are using these roasting pans, sticking my glasses, you really are going to want to support the bottom when you pull these things out. Okay. Okay, now we're going to carefully remove our aluminum foil and see what's happening here. I'm going to take maybe the end of this and just kind of... So I'm going to take my stick of butter here and I'm just going to slowly drizzle it all over the top. This is 1 stick of butter. And we're going to place this back into the oven until it gets nice, bubbly, and brown on top. Maybe another 30 minutes or so. Okay, guys, let's see where we're at here. Go, kids, looking good, looking great. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to get old rosemary off. You can see how it's browned on top. We got some brown crispy bits around the edge. That's good. And I'm hoping that it's not burnt on the bottom. That sometimes happens, unfortunately, if you don't let it come up to the ambient temperature properly, and or we're using these damn roasting pans. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of rosemary there for garnish, guys. There you have it. You've got the centerpiece of a Thanksgiving table right there. This is cornbread dressing. I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe, click the like button. Come along for the ride, kids. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're gonna see you next time. Cheers.